Welcome, seekers of the paranormal. And listen in as we dive into the eerie and unexplained. So turn off the lights as we join Dustin and Luke in exploring the unknown.
Welcome to another episode of the Exploring the Unknown. My name is Luke.
And I'm Dustin.
Today we have on the podcast, we have my dad, Tom. And he has some pretty cool experiences. He's done paranormal investigations for a pretty long time. He's a part of Face Your Fears Paranormal. You can go follow them on Facebook. And I think that's the only platform there are.
Yeah, we can drop that link down below so that if you want, you can go check that out.
Talk about a creepy doll. You should see this doll.
I don't know. I'm a little.
Can you see it?
Move it down a little bit more. Move your camera down. Or your phone.
Oh, ew.
You're sharing the what's it called? Yeah, right there. Just pull it down a little bit more, and you'll be good.
Ew. Is it hollow? Like the head?
Yeah.
Nah. Mm-mm. That's freaky. I don't like dolls to begin with.
Yeah, tell us some of the experiences you had at the old house.
I know I was sitting outside the one time, and I was sitting on the deck, and we had sliding glass doors, and you guys were all in bed, and I thought I seen a person like walk across in the living room, and I sat there and finished my cigarette, and I'm like, well, I'll go in. I thought it was you or Jacob or somebody. And I went in and there was absolutely nobody there. And I was like, well, that was kind of weird. And then I remember I was laying on the couch watching TV in the living room. And from the hallway, we had an archway there, and a little boy walked into the room. And he stood right up next to me. And he was like dressed like in period clothing, like from the 1800s. And he said, "Hi, my name's Billy." And I kind of looked at him and like blinked my eyes a couple times, and he kind of vanished. And then I know you had that experience with the scream when I wasn't home.
Yeah, that was scary. That scream was scary.
Then I don't know, I used to hear shit. Plus I was on the computer the one time, and we hunt, and I had an arrow up on my antlers right above the computer. That went flying across the room, flew off the antlers and hit the floor. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, there was always something going on there.
Now, did anything happen before you started actually like going out and investigating places?
I mean, I think I had experiences before I started, but I didn't really associate them with anything in particular because I really wasn't into it. So if something fell over or something happened, I just figured, a cup fell over or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I wasn't really aware of the situation and not really into like what it could actually be, where I just kind of pushed it aside and didn't really think too much of it. If that makes sense.
Curious.
The little boy story, that's blowing my mind. Like, it walked right up to you, like within just a couple of feet
it
from
was
you.
plain as day. I mean, it looked like a little boy, and he said, "Hi, my name's Billy." He even told me his name, and I was like, I looked at him and he probably lasted. I mean, I seen him walk into the room and then he stood there for a couple seconds. So the whole thing probably lasted. I mean, I know 5 seconds don't sound like a long time, but when you're staring down at something that's not there, it seems like forever.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Now,
Yeah.
was it like it wasn't like see-through or anything, it wasn't transparent?
No, it was pretty damn solid.
That's
And
wild.
I remember he had like blonde hair and he
Oh,
had
no.
like
It
coveralls
froze.
on, kind of like a farm kid kind of look to him.
Oh, no, it
But
froze.
it wasn't any like modern clothing.
Now, tell us the history about the house. Dustin asked me once before about it, and I didn't really know the history of it.
Well, the
So,
history, I actually went down because when you get a deed to a house, it gives you a book and a page number. And then you can go to, I went actually downtown and you show them the book and the page, and they pull that book and they show the page that's marked and it shows you the previous owner. So I went all the way, and then they actually have the titles to the house. And then on that title, it'll give you a book and a page, and you just keep regressing back. And I was actually back to the 1800s where Pittsburgh Cool and Samuel Boggs owned a property. And then I think a lady bought it, and she bought, I mean, at the time, it was probably a couple hundred acres before it was divided. And that was back in the 1800s. And I had like deeds and things written in calligraphy, like the old type style writing. And then the house was built in the early 1900s. And they had, the property markers were trees. It was like from this oak tree to this tree to this tree to this tree. And then, like I said, the house was built in the early 1900s. And I know one of the neighbors' family members used to own the house, Luddy. And I know there were like back in the day in the early 1900s, they didn't really have funeral homes, so they would have like the wake right in the living room. So I know there were a couple wakes in the house, like right in the living room. They would have dead bodies and people come and visit and whatever.
Yeah, Luke, I
And
think
then
you told me that
I don't
before.
know much after that.
Yeah.
And then I mean I don't know of any actual deaths or anything in there. Like the house I'm in now, I know 4 people died in. There was a lady committed suicide in the garage. She started her car and closed the garage door, and I guess her husband found her carbon monoxide poisoning. That's where I'm living now. And then she was only in her 40s, and then he died a year or two later. He was in his 40s. Then the original owners, there was only one other owner, one other family that owned the property. But I know the mom and dad both died in the house.
damn.
So
Now
I know
this
of at
this
least 4 deaths in here. That's all there is.
that's the place you're living at now.
What did you say?
Yeah.
Sorry if I seem
And I mean,
unresponsive. You
we
guys
have
keep freezing on my end.
things going on. Like my girlfriend Dawn, she's kind of a sensitive, and she sees and talks to dead people. And I know, like we'll be laying in bed, and I looked over at her. I'm like, "Did you see that?" Because there was like this big dark shadow figure standing right at the edge of our bed by the closet. And actually, she's right here. Come on, say hi. They're not. They're just recording audio. She's actually here.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
You can go on the camera just so no one else can see you.
Well, okay, here. His phone almost fell, sorry.
But anyway, I was telling him about when we were laying in bed and we seen that shadow figure.
Yes. Yes. It was on his side of the bed. I was like looking at the wall, and then I started getting sensitive and I started like freaking out. And I told him, he said, "What's wrong?" And I kept looking, and he looked over there, and you could see the shadow walk from his side of the bed. It went to the end of the bed, and it just watched us.
Did it seem malevolent?
Looks creepy.
But I mean,
Um,
um,
I wasn't scared, but I wasn't uncomfortable. But I was like, you know how you're feeling watched. That's what creeped me out, being watched.
Mm.
But also on my side of the bed, there's like a corner. But like 3 or 4 times, I have seen a woman's face in that corner.
Do you think it might be the woman that killed herself in the garage?
I'm not sure what she looked like, to be honest with you.
I mean, she was in her 50s.
I
I
mean,
would say 50s.
I thought it was in her 40s. I said, well, either way, she wasn't real old, but I mean, I looked up her obituary. I don't remember her exact age, but I guess they called her Cookie or something as a nickname. What was her real name? Do you remember? Miriam.
Marion.
So,
That's
And
wild.
there's also a little girl in here. Her name is Anna. She follows me, and she has called me mommy on the Oculus. So I feel like she's trying to look for her mom. I don't know if maybe I resembled her mom or whatever, but I mean, and I've noticed she follows me to other places too, because I can feel her.
no, I was sitting. I mean, I don't really say I have gifts and stuff, but I was actually sitting out on the porch by myself, and this woman walked up the street, and I mean, she was probably about 30s. Long story short, she come walking up on the porch, and she sat down right beside me, and she said, "Hi, Dad." And I looked at her, and I'm like, and I said, "Who are you?" And she said her name was Amber, I think. Now, like before Luke was born, my wife had a miscarriage. So this child would have been a little bit older than Luke, maybe a year. And
Looks creepy.
and then she said, "Oh, I'll see you soon." And that kind of freaked me out because I mean, I know like dead people don't associate time as we do. So I mean, when she said, "I'll see you soon," it could be 100 years from now because
Right.
time is not a constant anyway. But that really freaked me out. And I mean, she had like long blonde hair, and I mean, she was really pretty. And she, but when she called me dad, I kind of just like it stunned me because I was like, "What the fuck?" And then all of a sudden, she was gone, and I'm like, I come in and I told Dawn, I'm like, "Man, this girl just walked up and sat beside me and called me dad," and I was like, I don't know, like. They say life begins at conception. Now, if that was, if you actually have some type of soul when you're conceived and not actually born, if you could still manifest, and I'm not like real sure what happens, like if a child dies, say it's only a couple months old, does it stay a child or does it continue to develop as it gets older? If
That's
that
a
Right.
good
makes any
question.
sense.
Yeah, I never
Because,
really thought about that.
say a baby dies that's under a year old and can't even speak, yet you get child spirits to talk to you or whatever, and then that kind of, I'm still trying to figure that one out too.
Yeah, that's interesting because
That
I
also
mean,
brings me
sometimes.
back to like when I was in Mississippi. My mom had two miscarriages, and before my dad passed away, he was in the hospital. On one side of the bed there was a little boy, and on the other side there was a little boy. And my dad asked us, "Who are these little boys that is beside me?" And
Here, why don't you scooch over a little?
we said, "Dad, we don't know." Well, dad got back home, and then he was staring in the corner, and he was fussing at the wall, and I'm like, "Dad, what are you fussing at?" He said, "Mama's telling me it's time to go home, and I don't want to go home." And so I think it was 2 weeks later, my dad passed away. So I had this dream.
Just lean in a little bit. They can't. I mean, they can see you. Nobody
I
else
had
can.
this dream, and I dreamed that it was so real. I mean, and I dreamed I walked into the living room, and my dad was sitting in his rocking chair, and there was two little boys beside him. And I turned around and I said, "Dad," I said, who's these little boys?" He said, "That's your brothers." So I'm kind of feeling like maybe if Mama miscarried two boys, I don't know what the dream was trying to tell me. But I mean, it was just, the dream was so real. It's like, and I went and I touched the chair, and I could actually feel my dad's hands on my hand.
Oh wow,
Hmm.
that's wild.
So I
That's
can't
very vivid.
explain that
Now,
one.
now, what's your guys' opinion of, like, if a baby dies, does it
Exactly.
continue to grow like an adult, or does it just stay a baby that can't really communicate or speak or whatever? I'd like to know your opinions because I'm still trying to figure it all out myself.
I'll let you go first.
Oh, okay. I honestly, I've never thought about that. If like maybe if it continues to grow as after it dies, because I mean you hear accounts like you had with the little boy Billy. I mean, if maybe years later that little boy grew up, or maybe you still have another account like that, or that same little boy. I don't know. I honestly I have no opinion on that whatsoever because I've never thought about that what at all.
Yeah, I never thought about that either. Looks a good thing to look into.
Well, that's your
That,
job,
that
man. Get out there and start talking to people and ask that question and see what feedback you get.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
definitely good
Because
definitely.
questions to ask.
I think you can come back like as an apparition. Like if you died in your 80s, I think you can come back like at any stage of your life. But
I mean, I've seen my dad. I've seen his spirit, and he would look like he was in his like 50s, and was in his 70s when he passed away.
yeah, I mean,
So
I do believe that you can come back as an earlier
uh,
when you're feeling better and more active and things like that. But I'm still confused about the if a baby dies kind of thing. If they continue to grow into adulthood.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear. It's
Yeah,
a good
that's
question to
definitely
start
a
asking
question.
people for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I want to continue asking people that because I want to see what other people's opinions are for sure. Is my audio cutting out? I
I
feel
mean,
like it is.
I personally think, no, I can hear you fine. But I personally think that you continue to develop after, like, if a baby would die, he would continue to grow, at least to the point where he has an understanding and able to communicate and things like that.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, tell us some of your stories about Gettysburg. I know you've been to Gettysburg a good bit. Do you have any pretty cool experiences at Gettysburg?
I mean, I've been to Gettysburg, I remember being on Sachs Bridge. That's that haunted so-called bridge down there in the middle of the night, and you could actually hear. It was probably like 3 in the morning, and you could hear cannons going off, and that was kind of weird. You know, Other than that, I don't. I mean, I believe the place is haunted. And there's a lot of things going on, but I never really seen anything per se down there.
Didn't
I
you
mean,
see
I.
something walk across the railroad tracks?
Oh yeah, I did. I forgot all about that. Yeah, we were at the train station down there, and I guess there was a battle right there. And we're actually right before Gettysburg College, or beside it. And you could actually see the pond, which they claim a bunch of people have drowned in that pond. But I was standing there and I had my video camera going. And I'm like, man, I ain't catching shit. So I shut the camera down and set it to the side. And I seen an apparition of somebody walking like across the tracks. I mean, I didn't grab my camera or anything, but I ran right at it and I never found anything. But yeah, I do remember that now that you mention it.
No, I remember this. Tell us about that story about that EVP that you caught when you were at the cemetery.
Yeah, I was in the cemetery and I had a digital recorder going and I come up to this young woman, I guess she was in her 20s when she passed away. And I was just kind of reading her headstone, her name, and when she died. And I mean, plain as day, you could hear her voice like it was in pain. I said, "Oh, you died at the age of," and she's like, and the EVP went, "Uh huh."
It still
I
gives
mean,
me
it was plain as
goosebumps.
day. And I mean, I've played that for a lot of people, and it's kind of freaky
It,
because
Do you
it
it
is.
almost sounds like she's on her deathbed when she answered me.
do, do you have it
Yeah,
like that we could listen to sometime? Like you could send it to us, maybe.
I could, yeah, I'll send it to Luke.
Okay.
I
But
remember that. That gives me the chills thinking about it.
Yeah, you'll have to let them listen to that one that
and, I mean,
Joe sent us.
I've gone to a lot of EVPs over the years, and been called names and
Yeah, me too.
got FU and all kinds of stuff. But you know, I remember we used to do a lot of private homes, and I guess I know you're not supposed to interrogate things, and that's what they tell you anyway. But if I'm not getting any action, or if it's like really boring and nothing happening, I might call something out. And I remember we were at a house where there was a single mom with a couple kids, and she kept hearing things up in the attic, and it was kind of scaring her kids and all that. And I went up by myself, and I mean, it was totally dark up there. And I sat down and I called this thing out. I'm like, why don't you come get me, MFer? And all of a sudden, man, I had a real sharp pain in my back, like a burning sensation. And I waited a little bit and I kept, kind of interrogate me. I'm like, I ain't afraid of you, and this, that. And I went on, and my brother and sister in law were there. And I lifted the back of my shirt, and I was actually bleeding. This thing scratched me to the point where my back was bleeding.
Holy cow!
And, I had like three real deep scratches that were bleeding on my back. So I guess the thing got pissed off and attacked me.
Oh, that house where
Holy
we got the
crap!
best was that.
And
Now, do
then
you think that you?
I've been, go ahead.
No, I was just say, do you think that you have to be at like a certain level of vulnerability in order for these things to want to like show themselves or interact?
Well, here's the way I look at things is like Luke and I were with a group It was called the Bel Air Demon House in Ohio.
I told you about
Now,
this.
you know, we were sitting in the living room, and the dude we were with, Eddie, like he actually like curled up in a ball on the couch and started crying. And then he got possessed to the point where his voice changed, his facial expression changed. I mean, he was like totally possessed or taken over by something. And I actually grabbed him and I took him outside because we were trying to get him out of the house anyway. And I grabbed him by his shoulders and I put him down in a chair and I'm like, whatever got you, I'm like, get the fuck out now. And, but he was like totally possessed and, buddy of mine, Garrett's into some darker stuff. But we did this ritual, but it took over an hour for him to get back to normal. And that was probably one of the
Mhm.
scarier things that I've experienced.
Oh, was
Now,
it like
I guess, I guess this year we were also at a house where we were with a couple people, and the one woman, she started freaking out, like she something overtook her body, and she's like freaking out. I grabbed her. I'm like, leave her alone. I'm like, I'm not afraid of you. And she looked at me dead in the eyes, and she said, "Yes, you are." And I'm like, and her voice was real low, and I'm like, "I ain't afraid of you." And she's like, "Yes, you are." And I'm like, it kind of threw me off guard a little bit there. And then within a couple minutes, it kind of took over Dawn's body for a minute. She went flying on the ground, and I dove on her and grabbed her. And then another woman we were with, Vicky, Luke's aunt, she got pushed. So this thing was obviously pissed off at women for some reason. And I don't know,
that's wild?
but it's some
I don't.
pretty. I mean, there's some crazy stuff I've seen and stuff happen.
Now you got
So,
tapped, didn't you? At a barn or a
huh?
stable? You got tapped at a
Yeah,
barn.
yeah. We did a horse stable who's down in Bridgeville, PA, and the guy would lock up the horses, at nighttime, and then he would wake up in the morning and the barns were open and unlocked, and the horses were kind of just roaming around. And we were in this barn, it's totally dark, and I felt a tap on my shoulder, and I'm like, didn't think too much of it. And I'd say maybe 15, 20 minutes later, I felt the same thing. And I'm like, stop right now. I'm like, let's turn some lights on because I didn't know if there was like something hanging from the ceiling or, we turned the lights on and there was absolutely nothing around me. And then I had a digital recorder. And when I got home, I was listening. And right before I got tapped on the shoulder, another voice, plain as day, said, right behind you. So whatever it was behind me, it said it, and then it tapped me on the shoulder. And, then it was, like I said, it was a barn. It was real dirty and dusty. And the owner of the barn or the property was there. But he had like this real old golf cart. And it had like two handprints in the dust where you could see the handprints. And he claims they weren't there before all that happened. But I can't say one way or the other.
Mm. Now, how do you find these places? Do
That's
you
cool.
and like how do you ask him for permission to
I'm
go
trying to
and
think
investigate
if
them?
you have any other experiences you can tell us. I know you got a lot
No,
of
yeah, I've had a lot. I don't know, I have different theories of things, and, I think, like, Don's more sensitive, and I kind of think that it's like different frequencies. We're like humans are on a certain frequency, and I think ghosts and spirits are on a different frequency. So there's people that can get into that frequency better than others, or if you see something, they might be able to change their frequency. Just like if you're listening to a radio, I mean, there's radio stations on right now that are surrounding you, but you couldn't tap into it until you turn on the radio station. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Hmm.
So I think there's people that can tap into different frequencies, and I think the spirit world can also tap in our frequency. And I kind of think that's how like the whole Bigfoot thing is too, where I think it's a real thing, but I think it's also on a different frequency than you know, we as humans think we're so special and all that, where we're actually pretty freaking dumb. And, we think we know it all, and we know absolutely very little as far as I'm concerned.
No, we listen to a lot of podcasts at work about Bigfoot and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And a lot of people say they're like interdimensional. How do you feel about that? Do you think it's
Well, that's
possible?
kind of what I was just explaining, that they're on a whole different, like, frequency as we are. So they might jump into our reality for a minute or two and you see it, and then you go look and it's gone because they jumped out of our realm of
Hmm.
reality, I guess is one way of putting it.
So do you believe there's like different realms out there?
Definitely. I believe that, I, you know, I think there's a lot of different realms, and I think people can actually tap into. I actually read a book. I'm trying to think what it was called or what it was about, but it was about how you can like get into a meditative state and you could remember every part of your life. And there's like different stages or steps that you go. Like if you're on this like an 8-story building, you might be on the second floor where you could actually reach up to the eighth floor with certain meditation and different things where you can get to the point where you can remember every second of your life and the decision you made, and you could actually go back in time and make a different decision and go take a different path, and it would show you exactly what would your life be or what would have happened if you chose a different option than you already chose.
That'd be interesting to
That's
do.
interesting.
I'm trying to think what it's called. There's definitely a name to it. I forget the name, but you can actually tap into different, you know. And I know, I never really tried it, but I know a lot of people who do meditation and can tap into things that I can't associate with
Yeah.
because I don't practice it. But, I think you can get to different levels through meditation and different means.
I'm pretty sure Dustin said he was pretty big on trying to meditate at one point.
Yeah, I was doing
Yeah,
the Gateway Experience. Have you ever heard of that?
not particularly.
It was
If you
this
could tell me about it, I'd like to hear.
meditation that was designed by I can't think of the guy's name, but it ended up getting into the hands of the CIA, and the CIA was using it to uh, do remote viewing and astral travel. I think they even came out. They had like a whole manual on how to operate and use the program, and there was like I think 8 to 12 different tapes. They were like a half hour to 45-minute long meditations. Um, It was interesting. I was doing it for a little while, and life was different at that time for me. Um, I felt happier. I was doing like a lot of TikTok stuff. I was reading tarot and stuff like that. So, I
I mean,
mean,
could you actually project to another place yourself?
Astral project, yeah.
I don't
Did you get that
know.
far, or did you just kind of?
I don't know if I was like going other places because it's like what you're experiencing is all in your head. So it's like it's almost like
Right.
I kind of feel like I'm fabricating it in a way, but also, I mean, there's no proof to say that I'm not. That's why I was asking Luke the other day. I was like, why don't we try this together and we'll do it at the same time, and maybe we there's some similarities that might line up that might confirm that there's something happening here.
Yeah, we were at the Ross house last weekend with our group that we kind of do things with, and there are two women there that they say they said they could like tap in each other's brains and feel or see what the other one's feeling, which is, I guess it's kind of on the same lines as what you're saying there. But they're like the one saying if I get into a meditative state, she can actually jump into this other one's brain and they can share thoughts and talk and see the same things. And I was like, holy shit, that freaked me out. But
That is a little creepy.
Hey Luke, did you ever get to watch?
but like you said, it's all in the brain. If you can, and like this, like what I was saying earlier, if you can get on the same frequency as, like you and Luke are on a different frequency, if you could tap in to just like a radio station, you go to FM, you can tap into 20 different channels. If you guys could tap into 96.2 individually, then you might be able to hook up and sync to the same frequency as far as that goes.
Yeah, I thought that maybe if we recorded audio or video while we were doing it individually, that we could document it somehow. That would be interesting to post maybe on YouTube or something.
Yep.
Have you ever seen a Bigfoot? I don't think you have, but have you ever seen anything or
I
witnessed
haven't
anything?
seen one, but I know, like, up the cabin, Steve, my brother in law, and Luke's uncle claims he actually saw one where we go fishing across a power line and walked across. Now, a year or so ago, Don and I were up there, and it was probably 2 o'clock in the morning. I went outside and was smoking a cigarette on the deck up there, and she come out, and we heard a scream. I swear to God, it sounded like a lady screaming her lungs out at the top of the mountain. I mean, I know what a coyote sounds like. I know what animals sound like. And she actually freaked out and ran back inside. She's like, "What the hell was that?" I'm like, you know,
Was it a
I'm not
rabbit?
saying it was a
Though?
Bigfoot, but I've heard stories where creatures or even spirits try to lure you somewhere, where they'll make a noise or they'll try to get you into the woods or get you alone and you'll have an experience, whether good, bad, or otherwise, once that happens. But I think things can lure you into places, and I don't know if that was some trying to get me to come to see what the hell it was or if there was actually something there.
You
But
sure it wasn't a rabbit?
I'm
Rat.
positive. I mean,
I don't know. I didn't stick around. I went inside. I got scared.
My first
No, I'm
thought
just
was
saying that because
Wendigo.
that's what you said when you heard that scream at home.
no, I mean, I've heard rabbits getting killed. I mean, when we lived in Brookline, we had rabbits. You'd be sitting there and you'd hear a rabbit getting eaten or
This was different.
screaming. But it sounded like a a woman just like screaming at the top of her lungs. And I mean, it was like, I know it wasn't an owl or a coyote or anything like that. And I was like, I looked at her and I'm like, did you hear that? And she's like, she bolted. She was gone. She went inside.
Yeah, my first thought is Wendigo.
Yeah, they say they can change their voice too.
Yeah, and I think that's like their thing is they try to lure you into the woods.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I mean, I was really afraid. There's not much that scares me or makes me afraid. And I was half tempted, but it was in the middle of the night, and I just didn't want to go out in the woods in the middle of the night. Plus, whatever.
Well, that one year during hunting season, I remember I think it was me, Uncle Will, and Zach. Jacob might have been up there. I'm not sure, but we took a walk behind a cabin one night, and there's snow on the ground, and we had this massive thing running up on the hill. Whatever this thing was huge, and it was moving fast.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they remember, but I remember hearing it.
Now, were you with us that time Courtney shot at that deer up by that pond? And then we went the next day and we found that big frickin' nest on the ground? Were you with us?
I don't remember that.
But it looked like a big nest, like someone would be sleeping there. And I mean, it was probably 10 feet, and there was all kinds of branches and leaves and packed, and like it almost had a little bit of a roof, like you could lay there out of the weather. And I was like, man, what the hell is that thing? It was kind of weird. And then, I don't know, I've seen weird tree structures. I'm not saying they were Bigfoot,
Well,
but
we seen that one when we was riding through the
but we were
mountains.
driving around and we seen like, I don't know, it's like a big teepee almost made out of branches. Or
Right there at the
it wasn't a natural thing. I mean, it was something intelligent that it could have been a person, but
but it was right there at the road.
and it was kind of right on the edge of the road. And I stopped the car and I said to her, I'm like, look at that. And I actually took a picture of it because I was like, man, that's kind of weird because wasn't by any cabins or anything. It was just out of the middle of nowhere.
That is weird.
Yeah, that's cool.
But
Now, what's your theory on UFOs? I want that thing.
That's cool.
UFOs,
Yeah.
I mean, our galaxy is huge. You know what I mean? We can't even comprehend how big our galaxy is.
Hmm.
And we're one of a million galaxies. There's no end, according to whoever come up with the theory that there's no end to space. So I would think that as far as it's pretty sad for us to think we're the only intelligent species or anything that could be out there.
I
So
mean, there are people.
I believe there's aliens. I mean, I don't believe all these YouTube videos of people dressed in costumes running behind houses and shit. I'm not saying some of them might not be real, but I believe there's stuff out there. I
We
mean,
just
it's
listened
so
to an
vast.
episode yesterday.
How many planets other than Earth could support life of some type?
Hmm. We just listened to a podcast yesterday about it's back in 2018
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was pretty
in
recent.
Las Vegas, where they said aliens landed in their backyard. And they were like
Yeah.
10 feet tall creatures.
Right. I think it's possible. And if you just think of humans within the last 100, 200 years, we've come technologically way more advanced than,
Mm-hmm.
say 1,000 years from now, what's going to be going on.
Yeah.
Then they have these wormholes and black holes and things where you could travel, you know, like I'll use this as an example. There's a piece of paper. So if you wanted to go from here to here, you would have to travel that whole distance from here. But if you folded the paper in half, per se, those 2 points are right there. You know what I mean? So you could travel from here to there a hell of
Just
a
like
lot
that.
more quicker than you could go from here to there.
Well, they actually have a name for that. Um, it was I had it the other day. It's called the accordion effect.
Okay.
So, like, if the accordion is way out this way, and it's going to take longer to travel that distance than if the accordion is closed.
Yeah, that's
Kind
kind
of
of the
like
same
what you
theory.
just said,
Yeah.
but they call it the accordion effect.
And like time's not a constant either. We associate as humans, this is the year 2023, it's, 11 o'clock, whatever. But, in space, time isn't a constant.
Mm-hmm.
So you could, what we associate as an hour could be, a split second or less than that, even somewhere else. We're
Hmm.
just so programmed to think that, they're saying this is 2023, but the world and the earth have been around for 1,000,000 years. So it's actually the year 2,700,052.
Mm-hmm. No, I get what you're saying.
We associate and are programmed, from the day we're born to think this, this ain't real, this is real. I think if you're open and that you have an open mind, anything's possible. I don't disbelieve anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Hmm.
anything's possible.
Yeah. Talking about
Now,
the
the fact.
wormholes.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Oh, no, I was just saying, talking about
No,
the
you go ahead.
wormholes and stuff. Reminded me of that podcast we were listening to the other day about that plane in Malaysia. It was around 2013 or 2014 that had disappeared.
Okay.
Have you heard about
So
that?
what are you saying?
It,
It went to another dimension?
Yeah, they have video of it from satellites. They had produced a 3D video showing that it had there was like three orbs that was encircling it and its flight path, and then all of a sudden there's like this black portal or something that had opened up, and the plane flew into it and it just disappeared.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's nothing I don't disbelieve or don't think's possible. You know, I'm more, there's people that gotta see it to believe it, where I'm more like, you gotta prove it don't or is impossible before I won't believe something.
Yeah, I think I'm
yeah,
kind of
we
the
have
same way.
people out like that are like so closed-minded. They don't believe in any of it.
Well, you're programmed from the day you're born, what's real, what's not real, what people tell you, what your parents tell you. You know, you're one of the fortunate people, Luke, that I didn't really try to program you into disbelieving anything. And you had experiences of your own growing up where
Mm-hmm.
you would be more open to things than maybe some other people.
Yeah. Dustin said he had some experiences growing up too.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what?
Um, I
Well,
honestly,
tell
I
me
think
something. I want to hear your side too.
honestly, I think they were my
Tell him that
fault.
story. Tell him that story about when you went to church. That's interesting. I like that story.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, my mom and I went out to the Periopolis cemetery, and I don't know if you've been out there or not. There's a one-room dirt floor church that sits right in the middle up on the hill. And we went out there with my homemade spirit box. I bought a Radio Shack radio, and I rewired it so that it would siphon through like the channels. And
Right.
we're in the middle of this church going flipping through the channels, and it stopped. It stopped on a religious channel, and it was like this male voice just chanting in this low monotone voice. I have no idea what he was chanting, but my mom's like, just hit the button to make it go again. So I pushed the button and it started going again. It went like 3 or 4 channels and it stopped again. And on another religious channel is this little girl talking about the Holy Ghost and backsliders, and it just, the whole place gives you an eerie feeling. My mom, she's like, shut it off, put it back in the book bag, be nice and slow, and we're gonna walk out of here. I was like, why? She's like, because you can't let them know that we're afraid. I'm like, Mom, I'm pretty
Now, is
sure they
that
already
building
know.
open to the public?
I
Not
don't think that it
anymore.
is now. I think that they closed it off since.
Yeah.
We'll
But
have to try one day to go out to like a cemetery or something. Or one weekend try to go out.
yeah.
That'd be cool.
That'd be
I
fun.
mean, Dawn kind of freaks me out when we go to cemeteries. We'll be driving up the cabin, we'll see a little cemetery, I'll park the car and we'll get out and we'll be standing there and she's like, oh, there's an old lady, Mary, standing down there. She'd say her name, where she's at, and it's not where we're standing. It's like down the road and shit. And we'll walk down there and you'll see a headstone that says Mary, whatever the last name is. And I mean, she like freaks me out. I'm like, man, I'm like, how? She's like, oh, I see her standing there. I'm like, how do you, I don't see shit, but
That's crazy.
I guess
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of the experiences I had were my fault because I was messing with some stuff I shouldn't have been. Early on, I had access to the internet. I was looking up seances and rituals and spells and doing them without any knowledge of it. And yeah,
yeah, yeah, I guess, I, a buddy of mine who, he's kind of into all that stuff that I'm not really into and the darker side of things, but
Hmm.
I don't know.
I talked to him the other day and I asked him if he'd like to come on. He said, yeah, he just has to make
But
time to do it.
he has a whole different outlook on, organized religions and the occult and all that. And, I can't say I disagree with him about a lot of it, because like the Catholic Church makes Satan out to be this big bad, big bad thing. But if you look, Satan was actually an angel, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? He just went a
yeah,
different direction. So he wasn't always an evil, bad creature. So, he just took a different path, which is it right, wrong, indifferent, bad, good, is how you interpret it. So, say you look at it as, well, he's still an angel. I could worship an angel or that took a different path than the Christian faith. And they always say, these devil worshippers kill people and this, that. But in reality, Christians have probably killed a hell of a lot more people than Satanists have, because even today, there's places where you go where you say you don't believe in God, they kill you right on the fucking spot. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is. It's all, I mean, I'm not saying I worship Satan and all that, but, it's all on how you look at things, too. Like,
Yeah.
that's back to, you're programmed from a little child thinking this is right and wrong, and,
Yeah.
Now, there's a theory out there. You know what a Nephilim is, right?
a what?
Nephilim. They
You can
get
remind me. The
ba-
name don't sound familiar, but I'm sure if you described it, I know what you're talking about.
in the Bible. They say Nephilims as giant, like falling angels. They're
Okay.
giant people. And there's a theory out there that Bigfoot could be a part of these Nephilims.
I'm not sure about that, but I mean, it's a proven fact that Gigantopithecus existed on Earth, back in the Ice Age and all that. I would think it's more plausible that something like that could survive undetected, you know, I don't know.
I mean, even if they're interdimensional, you're not going to be able to detect them all the time.
Right. I mean, there's so many things that I don't know the answer to. And I'm not going to pretend I know all the answers because I don't.
Hmm. Now, is there any reason why you think they haven't came up with a body or anything like that?
But that could be an interdimensional thing too. Or, they could bury their dead.
Hmm.
If it's an actual creature. I mean, we bury things and, I mean, depends on who you want to believe. There's like DNA and scientific unexplained things proven they exist. Maybe a hair or something or some type of thing. But as far as why they haven't found a body, it could be because it's interdimensional. That would make total sense. Or, they're out in nature also. They live in the middle of nowhere with other animals and, where, if something would die, it could be devoured by other things and eventually, decay or become, you know. But as far as like, I know, up the cottage, like we have a place up in Somerset that's all woods. I mean, I really think if you gave me an hour and a half head start, you'd never find me if I really wanted. And I'm just me. I don't spend every day and every night and everything else out there. But I think you could detect somebody coming, and their senses are so much. They could have the nose of a dog, the eyes of an eagle. You don't know.
Yeah. I hate to cut you off, but we're gonna end it here, and
That
we'll
works for
definitely
me.
have you back on again sometime soon.
Yeah.
Anytime, man. It's good talking to you guys. Wish you
Yeah. Thanks for
luck.
coming on. Thank
All
you
right,
so
see ya.
much.
No problem.
Thanks everybody for listening to Exploring the Unknown. We enjoyed talking to my dad this week. If you'd like to get more of the Exploring the Unknown, we have a Facebook page, YouTube, and wherever a podcast or dropped good, then we can listen to the podcast.
Absolutely. Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.